A warm welcome to Business Daily right here on Trust Television. I am Yusuf Akogu. Let's take the business top stories. Glad to have you back. Now, before we go to the stock market, let's give you highlights of food inflation as it stands today in Nigeria. If you look at it from January, food inflation has been on the increase from 21.53 in January to 24.35 in the month of February. If you come down to March, it's 24.45%. Go down to April, 24.61%. In May, 24.82%. If you go down to June, it moved to 25.25%. And of course, in the month of July, it jumped to 26.98%, and in August it moved to 29.34%, a huge number there, and currently it stands at 30.64%. These are the highlights of food inflation as it currently stands in Nigeria. It's been on the upward trajectory from the month of January down currently to the month of September. Of course, maybe in October too, it has been projected to go even higher than this. So we will talk about this today and see how Nigerians can indeed take some good financial advices on how to manage their income. Let's look at the stock market now as it stands today. The market closed positive on Friday, 0.08%. It closed there. The volume of trade 214 million, value at 5.2 billion naira in a days of 5,325 deals exchange has among investors on Tuesdays. Let's look at the top gaining equities on Friday as it were. The beggar is there. The beggar paint gaining 10% there to close at 13 naira and 20 kobo. Rest Tarex also closing at 10% there to close at 3 naira and 30 kobo per shares. Japan Gold back on the gaining side today, 10% it closed to it gained there. I beg your pardon, to close at 99 kobo per share, almost 1 naira. Let's look at the top losing equities. As well on Friday, Academic Press from the printing press, they're gaining, losing 9.90% to close at 1 naira and 73 kobo. Of course, RT Briscoe also down there, 9.90% to close at 50 kobo per shares. Darcom 8.70% to close at 21 kobo per shares. The top trading equities by volume, let's look at it. The top trading equities by volume, Transcorp leading the chart there, 24.3 million volume of shares. Fidelity Bank, 16.7 million volume of shares. And of course, Japan Gold, 16.2 million volume of share of the shares of that company were traded on Friday. How is this reflecting in the sectoral performance? The sectoral performance, okay, African market. The JSE in South Africa is down 0.68%. Negative there. GSE in Ghana 0.29%, and of course NSE in Nairobi down as well 0.19%. So the highlight of the stock trading as it went down on Friday across various markets in Africa. And of course, as usual, today is Monday. All the markets are open for trading right now. And of course, investors are there, see how they can, cash in on their, make do with so many investment opportunities in all these markets. Well, for now, we take a very quick break. When we come back, we'll look at how we can actually manage our finances in a very difficult economy like we are experiencing right now. Don't go away. Glad to have you back. It's the Business Daily right here on Trust Television. Now we're going into our discussion. We're looking at the economic hardship and, of course, financial management in Nigeria. Quite a whole lot has changed in the last couple of months. With the removal of first subsidy, exchange rate unification, a lot of things have actually changed. Prices of things in the market have gone up. How are Nigerians going to manage their income to ensure that at least their needs are actually met? I have joining me in the studio someone who is a financial advisor and also a businessman, Mr. Og Adoga. I hope I'm correct.
Yeah, that's correct.
All right, nice. It's a pleasure to have you on Business Daily.
Thank you.
All right, let's start from the beginning, how it all started. The first subsidy was removed. The exchange rates has been unified, but the result we are getting, how will you access the current reaction that we are getting in the larger economy?
Well, the first thing I would say is that, when we're talking about floating the naira, a couple of months ago, it was actually all over the news. The naira will be floated, and I don't think a lot of people actually knew the direct implication of that, on the actual market. And one of the first things I would like to say is that when we say that we are an import-dependent economy, what we are talking about is that the factors of production for the things we consume here and the lifestyle that we actually have is dependent on the things we bring into Nigeria. So whatever affects the rates at which we are buying those things directly impact our lives.
All right.
Right. So one of the things you'd mentioned earlier was that people are having it pretty difficult to actually survive. Now, this is a direct implication of those two things you've mentioned. Subsidy has actually been removed, which is a healthy choice. Every financial analyst you speak to would say, well, that was actually the right thing to do because we're losing about 20 billion naira, almost annually, dollars almost annually, and that was actually good to save the economy. And the second thing that was done was that the exchange rate was actually unified, which means that the central bank, the federal government actually decided to devalue the naira. It was floated and allowed.
It's a massive devaluation.
Exactly. It was allowed, the free market was allowed to take the reins. But what we're actually seeing is that there is much more that is going on now. And, one of the things that is going on is that there are those people who are transacting actual goods for naira, and there are those who are speculators who are, because the dollar is scarce, using the opportunity to jack up the rate at which you can buy this dollar that is sought after, this same dollar that you can use to buy things from outside Nigeria. So that is affecting the price of the things we consume. So for example, if you had to import tomatoes, tin tomatoes, right? And you had to do that from China and it was at a certain price. Now you can't access dollar to be able to do that. And you're seeing people use mobile apps, try to convert their money, and now they have to spend more to to get a single unit of the same currency they could, so it is literally making things much more expensive. So that's what we are seeing currently.
All right. Look, are you saying that these people, these round trippers,
yes,
like we call them, are above the government, or there's complicit somewhere?
Well, it goes without saying. Okay, if you look at the history of round tripping in Nigeria, some people would argue that why are these speculators so powerful? Why is it that we can't get rid of them? And then you begin to find out that besides the talk about cabals, whenever you introduce a free market, right, speculators will always exist. It's a natural reaction to any floating decision, and the reason is because the free market, it enables competitiveness. So while we can actually look at these guys and say, these guys are tough, they are strong, and it may look like I'm making an excuse for them, but what we actually fail to see is the failure of government. The reason why these guys exist is because the dollar is scarce. You can't walk into a bank and ask for a dollar. You can do that in the UK. The reason why people don't hold dollar in the UK is because they don't need to. Your pound and your dollar is always the same rate for the past 10 years. Maybe it's going to change for a few shillings.
Pound is even stronger than the USD.
It's even stronger. You're not going to have to hold a dollar because it's not going to go 10% in the next 10 years, or maybe.
Or don't you think that African countries, most especially, have given strength to the US dollars by abandoning their own currency to focus on US dollar? That was not even print here. We don't print dollar here.
Yeah, inadvertently, we do, give strength to the dollar because of, the economic activity. But the reason is why? Why are we giving strength to the dollar? The reason why is because we don't produce anything. Now, let me tell you something that is happening.
I've been hearing this. We don't produce. We're not a producing nation. We don't produce. We're a consuming nation. I've heard it so many times. But there are a lot of manufacturing companies here manufacturing things that Nigerians are consuming. They think that maybe we have this appetite for foreign things. But I also believe that we are so much engaged with trade with China. And there is an agreement we signed in 2016, the currency swap deal, that allows Nigeria to go to China and buy goods in naira, while China can come here and buy their own good or make whatever transaction they want to do here in Chinese yuan. Why are we not taking the advantage of that agreement?
Let me give you an example of something that we have done, right? And that is just to answer one of the questions you asked. Are you currently aware that Nigeria is losing about $50 million every day? Because we've missed our OPEC quota, right? We're throwing that money away, and nobody's talking about it. So when we say we don't produce anything, we're not talking about corn and guinea corn and yam. We're talking about on a scale, that is efficient for an economy to actually survive.
You're talking about our roles in international trade.
International trade. That's what we're talking about. Are we producing enough? There's a deficit currently, and that deficit is not going to be solved by a few farms here and there. We're talking about on a scale of the economy that actually brings in enough general revenue, right, for the naira to be able to stand against this. So look at, for example, if we are still trying to import oil, then there's a problem because our refineries should be working now. Right, so at the end of the day, the China swap deal we did, right? It's I would say it's not as effective as the media has made it seem. Because if it was, we would have actually seen some fight back. Of course, a couple of days ago, the naira did 166 naira, fought back against the dollar. But I don't see it changing the narrative anytime soon. Even if the CBN has still pegged it at 700 and something naira did that, but we can see in the black market is still, because that is what people are actually willing to exchange for this. Of course, speculators exist. And again, when I say that we are not producing enough, what I'm actually talking about is that a lot of the things, right, we still consume in Nigeria are still dependent on international factors. We're not deciding our destiny enough, right, to be able to control how the naira is dancing. And a lot of economists are already calling for a devaluation, because apparently the central bank, by floating the economy, the naira, has made a decision to protect the foreign reserve. Because up until now, we are spending money to defend the naira. Now the foreign reserve is depleted. We have just under $25 billion dollars. It's depleted. So the decision to let the naira just stand on its own in the international market is a decision to protect the foreign
Don't you
reserve.
think there is quite a whole lot of policy around this exchange rate, naira devaluation and exchange rate management? Because your currency is your identity as a country, as a nation. I could recall when naira was introduced in the 70s, was even stronger than the US dollar. At what point did we miss that opportunity? Was it during, some say, during the structural adjustment program under Ibrahim Babangida? Is there no way? Because I could recall during the military regime of General Sani Abacha, he was able to keep naira stable for more than 5 years that he was in power.
Yeah, I mean, policy can obviously help stabilize the currency. Policy can help fight back. See, but the thing is this: are we willing to do the difficult things? I'm not a government preacher. I'm not a preacher of politics. But then again, I would also advise Nigerians to understand that whatever change that would require to make Nigeria better is going to be quite difficult in the first couple of maybe decades. It's going to be very difficult. And you see, you spoke about when we started getting it wrong. We started getting it wrong, I wouldn't want to call names, but we started getting it wrong in the military era, and you could actually see the value of the naira, crawl its way down gradually. It was, and a lot of these things were due to a lot of loans we're taking, and then we had to now start looking for how to support the naira against the deficits we're actually incurring, and by doing that, we're chopping off our foreign reserves, and the naira was also responding by going all the way back down.
All right.
So,
but now it's even tumbling.
It's tumbling, right? It's jumping, and some people are even saying that if care is not taken, we're going to have a situation where we'll be talking about double, triple digits, exchange rate to the dollar. That is absolutely
that is huge, really.
Yeah.
Well, let's look at the impact of all of these things on Nigerians. Earlier on, we're looking at we're talking about food inflation. If we can get that chart again, that food inflation, and see how it has moved from January down to September. If we look at the movement from January to 21.53% to February to March to April, it has been on the upward trajectory. Like now, all of these things are as a result of some of the policy decisions of the government, and of course the inability of the CBN to manage inflation properly. We saw them increasing the MPR almost at every MPC meeting, but that has not really helped the inflation numbers. And of course, food inflation is on the rise. If you go to the market, you go to social media, you enter buses, you go to many workplaces, these are the conversations among ordinary Nigerians. Mostly is lamentation. Now, at this point now, that the purchasing power now is far when you compare to the income. What advice do you have for Nigeria? You are a financial advisor.
Well, the straightforward advice, the straightforward logical advice is that Nigerians need to cut the cost of their lifestyles. It's crazy, to have to say this, because Nigerians are poor as it is. But what we are seeing is that it's not going to change anytime soon. Things are not going to get better anytime soon. And I'm not a prophet, but the obvious answer is to cut the cost of your lifestyle. And it might sound insensitive, but that's the only advice you can actually offer right now. And here's the thing. The currency, getting devalued, it's not always a bad thing, because when your currency is weaker, more and more foreign investments can come in, right? You can increase the amount of money you are making because more investors want to send more money. You can do all of that. You can also, your exports become more tantalizing to other people because it's cheaper. They can buy more from you.
All right.
But what we've not seen is that we've not seen the immediate responses surrounding these policies. For example, a policy that says we are banning all the buses in town should come with a palliative that's okay, this is the alternative for you to do when there is no bus to move around. But we've not seen the immediate. For example, we should see that there is an increase in salaries if we are devaluing the naira, so that the people who are import dependent can afford the things that are now going to jack up in price.
But some are also saying that increasing salary may also fuel inflation. because you're putting more money in the hands of the people.
Well, you see, the inflation, right, we're talking about, right, is man-made, right? So we're talking about an inflation that is affecting the price of food. Now, look at the price of food, 10% increase from January, right? That's 10.1% increase from January. We don't know when it's going to end. I told you earlier that we are depending on imports. We import everything, right? The purchasing power is dropping. So increasing salary cannot
solve the problem.
Yeah, it can't solve the problem. It can only allow people to at least
stabilize.
Have a breather. It's not going to cause inflation either. It's not going to cause inflation because we can see that buying Jeep for senators did not cause inflation. Buying 160 million naira houses didn't cause inflation. Why would increasing salaries cause inflation? So it's only logical. So when we say that, during the last administration, one of the things a lot of people are even ignoring is that the last administration printed 23 trillion naira at the cost of $49 billion. That was overvalued because the actual exchange rate that was used to print that money was the pegged CBN exchange rate that was not based on any real market transaction. And now there's a $10 billion deficit that we still have to pay back because of the exchange rate fallacy that was used at the time. So the inflation can never be caused by putting money in people's hands. It can actually be caused much more by government policy and government irresponsibility in managing this money.
All right, you talk about people cutting down on their spending or their lifestyle. Yeah. How do you think they will do that?
Well, the first thing we have to tell Nigerians is that the incomes, when they don't increase, it's just normal economic logic. When incomes don't increase, you reduce your expenses, right? So whatever way you can do that. If you go to places, right, 10 times a week, find a way to do it virtually. If you go to if you're an employer of labor, tell your staff to work at home. You guys do Zoom. Cut down on cost of rent, cut down on cost of transport by asking people to resume maybe 2 days a week rather than 3 days a week, because resuming 3 days a week obviously means now that they have to spend transport 3 more times, right? So these are measures. If you work at a place, and you earn 100,000 naira, for example, you would agree with me that many people will say, okay, no, maybe 30 to 40,000 naira would go into the cost of actually getting to their workplace. At the end of the month, they have a take home that's around the region of 60 and 50. Now, in the event where all of these things are put together and you take out the cost of life, they only have a very small net profit from their whole work. We need to start looking at how can we take away things that can be substituted for cheaper alternatives, or even...
All right, talking about taking things that can be substituted, what about parents who are carrying the burden of school fees? Yeah. Their children abroad already, are studying abroad. Are you telling them to withdraw them and bring them back to an inefficient educational system like ours?
Well, if you can't afford it anymore, then the absolute answer is yes. The reason is because, you see, what is the alternative? What is the alternative? You see, currently, we are at a crossroad here where we have to actually make very difficult decisions. Most of these decisions, these are not the fault of the average Nigerians. The average Nigerians did not commit any crime, right? They didn't do anything. But what are they going to have to do? Now, I've been here severally, and I've talked about how many of these, irresponsibilities of government can actually lead to other social problems, like increase in crime, increase in unemployment. And at the end of the day, if you have children in school, if you have, dealings internationally and you're losing a lot of money, the obvious answer is to withdraw. Is to withdraw or find other means. And other means have to be legal. At the end of the day, we have to look at where we are today. If you look at where we are today, the alternatives that are available to us are not so many. We don't have a lot of choices. I just like, I was also, speaking about the choice of Nigerians at the moment. Do we have the choice to devalue the naira? Do we have the choice to stay at the way we are? And speculators are basically setting the price of the dollar. If you want to go to school in Canada or in the UK, you can't go to the bank and get some dollars. There's even some rumor about the fact that some domiciliary accounts are going to be held. Your dollars are going to be stuck. That's not good news. That means you can't do anything without going to the speculators who are currently in control of the dollars because they actually have it. Right.
All right. Now, given all of these things that you have highlighted now, the speculators seems to have power here.
Yeah.
The BDCs operators seems to they want controlling the market. So the DBN and Deposit Money Bank, as it is now, are actually helpless. Is that what you mean? Or what do you think government should do in this regard?
Well, I wouldn't say the DMBs are helpless. I would say they are co-collaborators. And that could be an allegation, but I'm not mentioning any names. But then again, we can actually say that, you
didn't think that their policy is too stringent, because when you're operating a domiciliary account, for you to get your dollar out sometimes is even more difficult.
It's almost impossible to get a certain amount of dollars. It's almost impossible to get any amount of dollars that's actually important, that is actually usable for yourself. You see, currently, the problem is that holding the dollar is now a store of value. Shouldn't be. Just like I mentioned about how, in the UK, it's not a store of value. It's now a store of value. A lot of people's investment policy, like there are people whose whole investment policy is just to buy and hold the dollar.
The US dollar.
So because of that, you have commodified the dollar, and you're not going to get people to access it easily because it is now a store. Right?
All right, Mr. Adoga, I must stop you there. We hope that the current Minister of Finance and, of course, the coordinating Minister of the Economy did say that those speculators will have their hand burnt very soon. We hope that will come to fruition.
We hope it's not bluff as well.
Absolutely, Mr. Og Adoga, a financial advisor and, of course, a businessman. I must thank you for your time on business today.
Thank you.
We appreciate your contribution. With that, is a wrap on the show today. We'll be back again tomorrow. I'm Yusuf Akogun.